Hello and welcome to the Girls Fuel podcast. My name is Haley. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition coach here to help you along your health and fitness journey by providing evidence and experience-based knowledge and, as always, full transparency. I am so hyped for this episode today. We are going to teach you our 5-step process to heal your gut for good. We call this process the R.E.N.E.W method. So whether we're talking about healing your gut or what have you, we have a lot of people that we've been talking with that really are identifying with having IBS. So the thing with IBS is it is a bullshit diagnosis. And we have clients all the time that reverse their IBS. So they no longer deal with IBS or any GI issues. So in this episode, we're going to teach you, again, our 5-step R.E.N.E.W method to reverse IBS for good by walking through the process that we take with clients and giving you some examples to help you determine the best next steps for you in your journey. But Jess, want to tell us a little bit more about IBS and how that phrase gets thrown around?
Yeah. So like Haley said, guys, don't identify with any gut issue, IBS. I don't give a shit what the doctor told you because you can reverse your IBS, your gut issues, your Hashimoto's. You can reverse it. And Haley and I are examples of this. And I think when I talk to people are already in that mindset of I have IBS for life, or I have had these gut issues for my entire life. And you have identified with that. And I am so guilty of that. I also identified with it. And and you just let yourself struggle day in and day out. But realize that you should not be identifying with it because you can reverse it. Not just the other day, I was like, Haley, people can manage these symptoms. No, you can reverse them. And so we just want to get into the nitty gritty of our approach, what exactly we do with our clients to reverse IBS, to reverse your gut issues, or any of your chronic symptoms that you experience. Like this process, the R.E.N.E.W method can apply. That's my honest thoughts.
No, for sure. And using IBS as an example, irritable bowel syndrome is what that means. Basically, when somebody gets this type of diagnosis, what this tells us is the doctor is basically saying, okay, you have a GI issue that seems to involve the gut-brain axis, but we don't really know why. We don't really know what's causing it. You'll usually get some typical advice: add more fiber, drink more water, get more sleep, eat less carbs. But none of that gets to the root of why you're having symptoms. Some of those things work because they help the root cause. But that's why step number 1 of the R.E.N.E.W process is getting to the root cause, identify the root cause. And this is where with our clients, we do a very detailed assessment. I had someone say, this is so thorough. I've never filled out this much, even for a functional doctor. And I was like, yeah, because everything matters. Everything comes together from your history. And this is where when we talk to women, where we're asking you, what was your childhood? Did you get sick a lot? Do you know if you were breastfed? Were you on a lot of antibiotics? Were you constipated as a kid? Because it really does all add up. Then we're also looking at, do you have any blood work from your doctor that can help us assess maybe nutrient deficiencies, that can help us determine where your stomach acid levels are at, how your liver and gallbladder are doing, what your kidneys are doing. Maybe you have other advanced testing, and that's where we might also suggest it. But typically, we're able to gather a lot of information on you based on what you tell us in your history, in your day-to-day life. How do you respond to stress? What happens when you eat certain things or don't sleep well or have alcohol? And then we have our very detailed symptom-based questionnaire, which is going to go through a little bit of every system in your body. Because yes, even if we are mainly talking about GI issues, it is literally all connected. And that's where I think some other practitioners fall short, because they're just looking at the gut and saying, oh, she's bloated, he must have SIBO. But they're not looking at things like, is she having joint pain? Is her hair falling out? Does she have no sex drive at all? Does she have trouble with her memory? Has anxiety been higher? Is she not sleeping through the night? Even things, if we want to get more graphic with it, which we will, because we always talk about poop here, it goes into, what does your shit even look like? Is it shiny? Is there mucus? Is it loose? Is it hard? Do you notice a lot of food in it? Are you often getting aches and pains? Are you recovering from your training? Like, It really does go into everything. So that way we can identify where some of these symptoms are coming from, whether they're gut driven, maybe they're autoimmune driven, maybe it's all in combination, maybe it's hormone. So the biggest thing we need to do in order to know where to go first is identify the root cause. And again, we don't need testing to do that. It's usually just a bonus if we either already have it or have the financial means to order it. So that's step one. Step two, Jess, I'd love for you to explain this one for us.
Yeah. So step two, and probably so annoying for you guys to hear at this point, but get down the essentials for gut health or the basics. Everyone freaking says this, right? And you may already know, but it's the hard shit that no one wants to do, but we have to do it. And you may already have these down, which is a great start. But most of the time, you don't. And, this is just the annoying shit that you always have to watch out for. So sleep. Haley and I, 7.5 hours minimum of sleep per night, right? Sometimes it's really hard. That's another thing that we're asking on our assessment. Like, how is your sleep? Is it interrupted? Do we have sleep tools in place, like blue light blocking glasses, right? So really getting down sleep, getting down hydration. Hydration, are you using minerals in your water? Are you absorbing your water? Hydration during meals. So we are focused on our clients to get in hydration, not during meals. Sipping is okay, but trying to not have water during meals is really important, not to dilute digestive enzymes so that you absorb and assimilate the nutrients from food. The other thing is diet. So nutrients, I hype about this so hard because nutrients in your diet are really important. You don't have to supplement for everything. Food first, right? So we're thinking fiber intake. So are we getting enough? Are we getting too much? So fiber intake, where people go wrong is that they're only getting in one source of fiber. All their fiber is coming from their green supplement. Understand that supplements, they can be digested, but they're not going to be as good as having the real thing, right? Fruits, vegetables. I always like to use kiwis with my clients. There are I love different seed blends, like ground seed blends are awesome. I have like my favorite one at home from like North Coast Naturals. Sorry, Canada thing. I think. And then, yeah, there's fiber in whole grains. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, seeds. So nuts and seeds, dark leafy greens, all of these things. Think of just a very colorful, vibrant diet. The next thing, stress management. So annoying. Again, I know. But here, what we're focusing on for my busy moms out there, like eating when you're stressed can be really hard to digest your food because there are no resources in your body that are supporting that digestive process. Your body is just trying to fight off the bear, right? So making sure that you're taking 3 deep breaths before eating and trying to really be mindful of your plate, trying not to be distracted. I've seen some things online where you don't necessarily have to be in monk mode, but what works for you to be focused on your meal, to really be in that relaxed state. The other thing is your perception of stress. This is a massive thing that we work on with our clients every single week is what's going on? How can we manage stress? What works the best for you? And how are we perceiving it? If we have a more positive perception of stress, maybe we can manage it a lot better. Some other things that we work on with our clients is their time using technology. So usually our goal is to stay away from screens the first hour of waking and the last hour of waking to really support cortisol management, support the sleep-wake cycle. And then of course, we have to talk about training here as well. Are you overdoing training? Are you underdoing training? What is your intensity like? Right? With a couple clients, we've needed to reduce intensity, not necessarily take out training altogether, but reducing intensity. So understand you're not going to lose progress reducing intensity. You are going to maintain while you heal your gut or heal anything else. Yes. The whole point with reducing training intensity is so that when you do heal your gut, you reap more benefits from training, right? Like a lot of people who are going through gut issues aren't seeing progress at the rate that they want to. So that's the goal, seeing progress at a faster rate. And then lastly, spending you time. This is so hard. Haley, I actually want your opinion on this, but you time for the busy mom, right? Most of my clients, I'm not going to recommend spending an hour at yoga by yourself every day. My suggestion, like for a client that I just talked to is, can we take 3 to 5 minutes from task to task just to sit and either breathe, have a tea, do nothing. Things like that. I always remind people of the insight timer, like what works for you, just that 3 to 5 minute break to spend it on you, resetting your nervous system. Right. But that might have been long.
Good.
Sorry.
That was good. The essentials phase, the E step 2, this is really important, and this is something that we're focusing on from the beginning. And it only evolved as we get to know you better, right? Because we all have our shit. We all have our low-hanging fruit, and it can be hard to recognize it in yourself. So that's where having a coach can be really helpful, especially when navigating a GI issue. Because especially when it comes to the diet portion, we do have to make some changes here based on what issues you're having. With low stomach acid being a big one for people, there are times where we have to pull protein down because we're overdoing the high protein diet, or we need to pull fiber down because we're overdoing the healthy foods. And
Mhm.
it sounds counterintuitive, but if you're somebody that feels like the more veggies you eat, the more beans, the more healthy foods you eat, the more bloated and gassy you are, your body just doesn't right now have the resources to break them down. So we need to temporarily reduce the burden on digestion. And that's something that I have a client, she's only been with me for a few weeks. And week by week, we're working on that. We're changing up her food choice. It doesn't happen overnight. We're seeing, can we maybe substitute eating multiple apples a day? Because apples are great, but they do have a lot of fiber that's hard to break down, for a different fruit or a different carbohydrate. And really finding what your sweet spot is for fiber. And a lot of times we have to pull it way down while we're going through phase 3, which we'll get to next. And before we bring it back up, and even changing the types of
Yeah.
fiber. So if you're struggling with gut health, you might do better with a resistant starch type of thing, where it's a food like a
Mhm.
potato or rice and oatmeal that's cooked and then cooled, rather
Yeah.
than having 4 cups of salad greens every day and raw vegetables. So these are little things that it's very like person to person that we're working on. Maybe you don't sleep through the night. Maybe you have a hard time falling asleep. Maybe your electrolyte balance is off and you notice lightheadedness or different things with training that need to be optimized. And then I really like the part about making time for yourself. And that's something that I've had multiple conversations with clients about this week, especially if it's the United States election. I have a lot of clients that are in grind mode for work right now before the holidays. And a lot of people's GI shit is flaring up, and I'm looking through their tracker and I'm like, your stress rating is high. You didn't write anything that you did for yourself or any like little daily glimmers all week long. And it's no wonder you feel like crap. You're not sleeping well and your gut is flared. So that's something to monitor. And then also, getting in tune with your hormone cycle if you're a woman, and starting to recognize, oh, like I get more flares around this time of my cycle. So that way you're not running around the week before your period convincing yourself that you're going crazy and you need to be in the loony bin. You're able to recognize, oh, hey, my cycle's going to start. How can you get those essentials down to support that so it's not as brutal, or at least the mental load of it isn't? So step 2 is
Yeah.
always going to be mastering the essentials first. And this evolves as you do, right? Because life changes,
Yeah.
stressors change, priorities change. And that's where building resilience in these, I would call them like non-negotiables. I don't want to call them habits or routines, because routines have to change sometimes. We can't get too rigid in our routines. I'd rather think about them as non-negotiable things that we do for ourselves. And they won't all happen every day, but understanding what makes you feel your best is really important.
Yeah. And just to add to that, each of these steps are going to be extremely customized, right? We're being pretty broad, but for each person, it's going to look a little bit different. But this is the general idea.
Yep. And then step 3, this is where we are nurturing your gut with the 5 R's. So you might have heard other coaches talk about the 5R protocol. This is not always a piece of the puzzle for our GI health clients, but it usually is. So this is the protocol portion of our approach, if you want to call it that, where we do try to keep it as realistic to your life as possible. So yes, you might be taking more supplements. We might be eating a bit differently, but we really work with you to make it feel sustainable for the time
Yeah.
being. So to briefly go over what the 5 are, and this is, again, typically this happens after we have testing. If we don't feel like we need testing, you just won't usually do number 1. The first R is remove the pathogen or the trigger. So this is where maybe from your stool test, we see a parasite. Maybe we see a bacterial overgrowth.
Mhm.
Maybe we're dealing with some just systemic inflammation due to an immune response. This is where we're working to remove that issue
Yeah.
and teach your body how to eliminate it on its own. So this maybe we're upregulating detox, right? But this is where we'll often remove food triggers. We might do
Mhm.
a modified elimination diet, but it is gonna be very customized to the individual. I know when I first started coaching gut issues 3-ish years ago, everyone went low FODMAP. That was just the diet that people went on. If you're probably familiar with it, because doctors recommend it for IBS, because it works, because most people that have IBS have SIBO, have a bacterial
Yeah.
overgrowth. So we've found over the years, you don't necessarily have to be 100% with a certain elimination diet, unless, of course,
Mhm.
your case is very severe. A lot of people will do really well with picking and choosing what they eliminate, and will often work with you to figure out, all right, hey, this is what we do when we're at home, when we can be 95% on. But when we travel, when we have an event, a wedding, like, you still have to make memories and you still have to live your life. So how can we
Mhm.
be more towards that 80% on and make room
Yeah.
for like 20% of the time? So typically we'll still keep out gluten and alcohol, but we may say, hey, things are cooked in garlic and onion. I don't want you to stress that. I don't want you to stress this vegetable over that one. We'll work with you to customize what we need to prioritize based on your symptoms. So that's our number one is remove. Again, if we don't suspect an overgrowth or an infection or a pathogen, we don't do that phase. Then we move into replacement. So this is where we're replacing what's missing. And for
Yeah.
most of our girls, this starts before we even test because we've got it down to a T now with our symptom-based questionnaires that we can almost guess what we're gonna find as far as what needs support. So this is where we might be supporting digestive enzyme production through the diet, through supplementation. We might be supporting immune function, liver detoxification. These are all different things that might be getting replaced throughout our kill off and even before. After that, after we go through the removal, and we're working on replacing, we do need to repopulate the gut. Whether you go with an antibiotic, which is something we do help clients do, we won't really dive into that in this episode, but or antimicrobials or herbal supplements, which most of you are probably familiar with. We do need to repopulate the gut. We often will use a probiotic in the replace phase where we
Yeah.
are supporting good gut bugs throughout the protocol or the antibiotic. And that is something that I think a lot of people miss when they do an
Yeah.
antibiotic for SIBO, like an amoxicillin, or when they put herbs in like berberine and garlic and oregano. They're not adding the right support. They're not replacing probiotics for gut bugs. They're not replacing enzymes. They're not replacing stomach acid. So then that opens us up to just get reinfected. So we're always going to replace while we're going. And then
Yeah.
once we believe the infection has cleared, this is where we're repopulating the gut with good bacteria via probiotics, prebiotics. We're reintroducing, we have a structured reintroduction diet if you're someone that had
Mhm.
a lot of elimination to get things back in and help you see what feels good and maybe what we still need a little bit more time without. And just because you try to reintroduce a food after this phase and you don't pass, you feel like a little yucky after, that doesn't mean you have to avoid it forever. That might just mean that we need
Yeah.
to keep up a certain type of enzyme or we need to add a certain level of support. The fourth R is going to be repair the gut. So this is again something that usually is happening throughout this entire process. We're really doing GI lining support, stomach acid, inflammation, again, depending on what your symptoms are. And then the last R is really rebalancing it with lifestyle factors and diet. So we're making sure that anything we've changed,
Mhm.
I know for me personally too, when we're going through a gut phase, it may feel like we're babying ourselves a little bit. And we really work with our clients to figure out what that sweet spot is for training, for pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone, for staying up late, for doing a workout class, for whatever it is, for going out to eat and not being afraid we're going to shit ourselves, right? That's where we really start rebalancing life and finding what you can do now that your gut is healed. So that's step 3, and then we'll go over steps 4 and 5 super quickly. Jess, do you wanna take those? And this is now assuming we've removed the infection, we've removed the pathogen, we're working on repopulating your gut, and these are some things that are really important to make sure that what you've done sticks.
Yes. The thing is, what got you into this situation in the first place, right? We don't want to fall back in old habits. Yes, okay, the gut is healed, but there are still a lot of things that we want to continue to maintain. So it goes back to the basics, right? What helped you heal your gut? Some of these things we're just going to continue to use. Eating a diverse diet, eating those foods that were customized for you that work well, staying hydrated, managing your stress, prioritizing your sleep, moving your body, minimizing toxin exposure. So this might be processed foods and just continuing to assess your gut health. And you can just do this by yourself, right? Like How are you feeling? How is your gut doing? How is your food being digested? That is a really good clue as to if your gut is doing well and if you're continuing to maintain that state of gut. The last one is step 5, and we like to call it whole life adaptations. Different stages of your life are going to require different approaches, right? And so in our coaching, we teach our clients to learn to adapt based on what's going on in their lives. Are you traveling, adjusting to work changes, managing family life? There's so much going on. And what we teach our clients is how to adapt their protocol or say health plan to fit their lifestyle because you can't expect to stay on this protocol forever, right? Like we're going to pull back. What we're going to find, we may need to pull back and focus on some non negotiables instead of being on something that you can't stick to. What are your non negotiables? What are some things that we can do right now in your life stage? Haley, what would you add to that?
Yeah, definitely. And that's the big thing is understanding like why did your gut issues, why did they start?
Yeah.
A lot of it isn't just, oh, I randomly got SIBO. Like it's not, that doesn't happen to people. We can think back to what are your tendencies, right? Like I know for
Yeah.
myself, my tendencies are, for example, one thing that I'll do that is not the best for my gut health from time to time when I'm stressed, when I'm busy, is I'll undereat. I'll skip meals. I'll go
Mhm.
long without eating. I'll gravitate toward more processed food like bars and protein
Yeah.
shakes and things of that nature, which is not feeding are not feeding my good gut bugs and is like
Mhm.
lowering my stomach acid a little bit due to stress. And it also depends on what your root cause symptoms were. So like we have clients that, yeah, they have some GI issues, but they come to us to work on their skin health. Like we have clients that pretty normally they're pretty good, but they have psoriasis that flares up all the time. Or I have one client that we
Yeah.
connected her psoriasis flares to gluten. So it's like understanding what tools you need in your toolbox to maintain the level of health that you've gained. So it might be knowing when to enjoy more gluten and knowing when to pull back on it, knowing when to push your training and when your body and nervous system might need to pull back. That's the big thing that, and this is why I love coaching clients for longer than our typical 6-month commitment, because especially for females, we get to see month by month
Yeah.
cycle, but we also get to see like how do you respond to stress? What triggers come up or what fears come up around the holidays? Like, how can we take you through the holiday season without moving backwards? How can we take you through summer when you're going to 16 weddings and you're traveling without sliding backwards into old habits or sliding backwards and getting some of these issues to come back? So that's where a lot of when people talk about protocols and this and that, it seems like this massive undertaking that is going to be months and months and months of being spot on with the protocol and taking handfuls of supplements. And we'll be honest with you, because we always are, there are times where, yeah, you're going to take some supplements and you're going to probably be a
Yeah.
little careful with your diet, but that is only a very small portion of your gut healing or just your body healing journey. A lot of it is really just working with us and working with yourself to learn how to maintain this and learn what habits
Mhm.
might have got us here. So that way we can
Mhm.
avoid it happening again.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And that's where too, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't really have a lot of gut issues. I don't necessarily resonate with this. I'm sure we all have something that is like our Achilles heel, right? Where there's just one thing that it always comes back around no matter how many things we try, how many cleanses we buy, how many whatever challenges we do. What even we can even bring this into weight. Are you losing and gaining
Yeah.
the 20 pounds? Are you constantly falling off track the second life gets crazy? There are so many ways that we can apply our renew method
Yeah.
that it's not just specific to gut health, but in this episode, we did talk about it as such. But I hope that this kind of helps you understand what our process looks like. Cause I know from the outside, it can look really overwhelming to say, oh my God, like I'm going to work with them. I'm going to heal my gut. Like it's probably going to be super restrictive. It's going to be super expensive. Yes, sometimes those things will be true, but there are a million ways to do it. And you don't have to be perfect, right? As long as you can pretty much commit to not drinking alcohol for a few months while we're doing this, everything else, you're going to be fine if you miss supplements for a few days. You're going to be fine if you go out to eat and accidentally eat a little gluten. You don't have to be perfect. And that's something we'll work on showing you throughout this process as well. I think we'll leave it right there for today. If you like this episode, definitely subscribe, share it with a friend. And if you heard this and are like, that is what I need, apply for coaching, take our free gut quiz, take a step towards feeling better because you deserve to. And thank you so much for hanging out with us today.